In our headlines on this Monday, March 24th, here in South Korea. The South Korean Constitutional Court rules against the removal of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo from office, with 7 out of the 8 justices finding fault with his opposition-led impeachment. Accordingly, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo returns to his post as acting president after more than 80 days of absence, with his first call of duty related to the ferocious forest fires nationwide. And speaking of those ferocious forest fires, 4 lives have been lost and over 2,000 forced to flee as high winds and dry conditions hamper efforts by first responders to tame the flames. We start here on the local front with news of the Constitutional Court's ruling against the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
The Constitutional Court has ruled against the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, effectively restoring him to his duties. The judicial bench delivered its ruling Monday, 87 days after the National Assembly passed a motion to remove Han from power, who is also acting president, following President Yoon Suk-yeol's own suspension from office after declaring martial law. Out of the 8 justices, 5 voted to dismiss the impeachment motion, saying there were no grounds to justify Han's removal from office. Only 1 Justice Chung Kye-sun voted to uphold the Prime Minister's impeachment. 2 justices, meanwhile, argued the impeachment case itself should be scrapped without review, as the National Assembly passed the impeachment motion with a simple majority, instead of a 2/3 majority required to remove a president. Among the 5 grounds for impeachment, the most contentious point had been the Prime Minister's refusal to appoint 3 Constitutional Court justices recommended by the opposition-led National Assembly. The bench ruled that while Han's decision to withhold the appointment violated the Constitution and the law, this did not necessarily betray public trust. One justice said the PM does not have an immediate obligation to appoint the candidates. On the National Assembly's accusation that Han abetted President Yoon in his December 3rd martial law declaration, the bench said there was no evidence to suggest that. It also did not recognise the Assembly's claim that the PM tried to establish a joint governance system with former ruling People Power Party leader Han Dong-un, nor the PM's alleged push for vetoing controversial bills on special investigations. With his near 3-month suspension behind him, Han expressed his gratitude to the Constitutional Court for its, quote, wise decision.
Upon my return, I will dedicate myself fully, always upholding the Constitution and the law, to working hand in hand with our people, the political community, the media, civic organizations, businesses, government officials, and cabinet members for the sake of our younger generations and the future of Korea.
The presidential office expressed its support for the ruling as a starting point for normalizing governance, saying the National Assembly's abuse of its impeachment power was shown to be a malicious political offensive. Out of the 13 impeachment motions passed by the National Assembly in recent months, the court has ruled on and dismissed 9 cases. Ahead of the president's own impeachment verdict, observers say the justices' divergent views on Han Duck-soo's impeachment are worth noting. The bench has been deliberating on Yoon's case for a month after his final trial hearing. His ruling is expected this Friday at the earliest, or before mid-April when 2 justices retire from the bench. For now, Han's return to office marks a critical turning point. But with President Yoon Suk-yeol's fate still undecided, the nation's political uncertainty is far from over. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And upon his return to his post as acting president, Han Duck-soo urged for national unity with the focus on moving forward and not towards the left nor to the right. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has details.
In an address to the nation after 88 days in suspension, acting president and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Monday emphasized national unity. He especially called for politicians to work together amid multiple crises.
If there's one clear lesson we've learned over the past few years, it's that a society divided by extremes leads only to misery and fulfills the dreams of no one. The ruling and opposition parties, as well as the government, must truly change, and I will start with myself.
He also noted that During the 50 years he's spent in public service, the majority of the people in South Korea have wanted to make the country go up and forward, not left or right. As for his return as a caretaker, he said during his suspension he thought deeply about what his last responsibilities would be if he were to return. He pointed out the global trade war started by U.S. President Donald Trump and said the world is currently facing an intensifying U.S.-China power rivalry following the inauguration of President Trump, along with a new wave of geopolitical shifts and the restructuring of the global economic order.
I will devote all my wisdom and capabilities to safeguarding our national interests in the trade war that has already become a reality. For the remainder of my term, every decision I make will be guided by what best serves Korea's industries and future generations. The entire cabinet will move forward alongside me.
Han was immediately briefed about the ongoing devastating wildfires in the southeast of the country. He also made orders to public safety officials amid the turbulent times. For his first lunch back, he ate with cabinet members. There, he urged ministers to push forward on key issues directly tied to people's livelihoods with greater speed. And he asked all cabinet members and public officials across the country to do their utmost to ensure that every aspect of state affairs, including diplomacy, national security, the economy, trade, public safety, and administration, functions smoothly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The government also will put together a task force to focus on the current Trump administration's tariffs, as well as the listing of South Korea as a sensitive country by the former Biden administration. Intentions to this end were shared on this Monday by Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok during the weekly roundtable on global economic matters at the government complex. Highlighting the importance of staying vigilant on the trade front, Choi also called for follow-up measures to recent talks between Trade Minister Han Duck-soo and U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright last week in Washington, during which the two officials agreed to work together to swiftly settle South Korea's concerns over the sensitive country designation. Meanwhile, rival political parties have responded to the Constitutional Court's ruling against the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. I have our political correspondent Shin Ha-young standing by live with details. Ha-young, it's great to have you back. So the reaction from lawmakers across the aisle stands poles apart, I hear.
Right, Sunny. Indeed, the Constitutional Court's ruling on Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment has brought mixed reactions from rival parties. And to start with, the ruling People Power Party welcomed the court's decision to dismiss Han's impeachment, saying it was expected, and also describing the ruling as a warning against the opposition party's use of impeachment legislation. Take a listen.
It was a strong warning from the court against the opposition party's reckless legislation. It has lost all 9 cases, a historic defeat.
The party floor leader Kwon Sung-dong, however, expressed deep regret over the court's decision to set the required votes for passing an impeachment motion against an acting president at 151 seats. And the PPP has been arguing that Han's impeachment should be treated like a presidential impeachment, which requires the support of 2/3 of lawmakers or 200 votes out of 300. And Kwon argued that this effectively allows unlimited impeachment against acting presidents, calling it a dangerous precedent. And the PPP said on Monday that its lawmakers proposed an amendment to the National Assembly Act to prevent abuse of impeachment rules in the future. The party's policy chief Kim Sang-hoon said that the bill would require lawmakers or parties that initiate an impeachment motion to cover the procedural costs if the Constitutional Court dismisses or rejects the case.
I see. And hi, what has the main opposition party been saying thus far?
Well, the main opposition Democratic Party, which was at the forefront of the opposition-led push in the National Assembly to remove Han from office, expressed regret over the ruling. Take a listen to what DP leader said.
We have to respect the decision, but I wonder if the public will accept why this clear and deliberate violation of the constitutional duty to form a constitutional body wasn't enough for impeachment.
DP floor leader Park Chan-deok also emphasized that the court confirmed it was unconstitutional not to appoint justice nominees, urging Prime Minister Han, who also resumed his role as the acting president, to do so immediately for Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk. And Park also urged the court to deliver a verdict on President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment as early as Tuesday. And meanwhile, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik said he respects the court's decision, stating that it resolves constitutional interpretation issues regarding the required vote to pass an impeachment motion against an acting president. And that's all I have for this hour. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Hayoung, thank you for the latest on the political front. That was our National Assembly correspondent, Shin Hayoung. Wildfires here in Korea that began late last week took the lives of 4 people, including firefighters, and forced over 2,000 people to flee. What's more, unrelenting winds have been hindering efforts to ease the blaze. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the latest.
Houses completely burned down with collapsed roofs and blackened walls. In Sancheong-gun County, Gyeongsang-namdo Province, the whole of Waegong village was covered in smoke over the weekend and 6 houses were destroyed.
The fire sparks were flying in all directions. With strong winds in the afternoon, the fire spread across the river.
The wildfire started last Friday afternoon on a hillside in Sancheong-gun County and spread rapidly due to strong winds. 3 firefighters and 1 government official from Changnyeong-gun County died while fighting the fire, and the county has declared a mourning period until March 27th. It is reported that it seems they were trapped while clearing embers on the mountainside as shifting winds reignited the flames. An area of around 14 square kilometers, about the size of 1,900 football fields, has been reduced to ashes. As of Monday morning, 65% of the fire had been contained. Large wildfires also broke out in other parts of the country, including Uiseong-gun County in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province and Ulju-gun in Ulsan over the weekend. The total area burned is about 87 square kilometers, roughly the size of 12,000 football fields. Nearly 160 homes have been destroyed and around 2,000 residents have been temporarily evacuated. The Korea Heritage Service has confirmed that 3 national heritage sites, including a ginkgo tree, which was over 900 years old, have been destroyed in the fire. Currently, the government is deploying over 100 helicopters and almost 9,000 personnel to put out the fires. The cause of the wildfires has not been determined yet, as the firefighting efforts are ongoing, but they are tentatively believed to be accidental, caused by acts such as welding or from burning gardening waste from tombs or graves. The Korea Meteorological Administration said that the wildfires were made worse by the severe dryness in forested areas and strong spring gusts. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in Saudi Arabia this past Sunday, officials from Ukraine and the U.S. sat down for talks, 1 day ahead of official separate negotiations between Washington and Kyiv, as well as between Washington and Moscow, scheduled for this Monday. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
A day before the U.S. plans to hold separate meetings with Ukrainian and Russian delegates on Monday, Washington's technical team held talks with Ukrainian officials on Sunday in Riyadh. As part of Washington's shuttle diplomacy in Saudi Arabia, U.S. and Ukrainian officials were set to hold talks on Monday, followed by a separate meeting between U.S. and Russian delegates on the same day. However, it was later confirmed by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky that Washington and Kyiv would hold talks a day ahead of its meeting set for Monday. Following Sunday's meeting, Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustam Umerov said talks with U.S. officials were productive and focused, adding that the 2 sides addressed key points, including energy. The defense chief said that Ukraine was working to make its goal of a just and lasting peace become a reality. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff expressed confidence that progress would be made with Russia and Ukraine. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, Witkoff said he expects Ukraine and Russia to make progress on a ceasefire in the Black Sea after holding talks on Monday, which will naturally gravitate to a full-on shooting ceasefire. The special envoy also said he believes Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to end the war, stressing that he wants peace. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And Foreign Minister Choi was in Tokyo this past weekend for trilateral talks with his Japanese and Chinese counterparts aimed at advancing partnership on security matters, including North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji covers its latest diplomatic endeavor.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il sat down for talks with his Japanese and Chinese counterparts in Tokyo as the three countries seek to boost cooperation for regional peace amid geopolitical uncertainties. This is the first time that they've met since November 2023. In a press conference following the meeting that took place in Tokyo on Saturday, Cho said that they've agreed that it's in the three countries' common interest to maintain security on the Korean Peninsula. He also added that they addressed the issue of illegal cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow.
I stress that illegal military cooperation between Russia and North Korea must come to an end immediately, and that the North should not be rewarded for its wrongdoings in the course of ending the war in Ukraine.
Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya noted that the world is at a turning point in history and showed concerns about evolving threats from North Korea.
Regarding the current international situation, I expressed my concerns about North Korea's nuclear and missile development, cryptocurrency thefts, and cooperation with Russia as regional threats.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi described the current situation on the Korean Peninsula as complex and sensitive, while adding that all parties must meet each other halfway and show goodwill. On economic issues, he said the three countries are looking to push forward with regional economic integration, including the resumption of a free trade agreement.
The three parties are maintaining communication on restarting the negotiations on the free trade agreement and strive to resume them as soon as possible.
The three officials also agreed to speed up efforts to hold a summit between their leaders as soon as possible at a mutually convenient date. Pei Eun-ji, Arirang News.
In other news, Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors are set to hit a new milestone in the U.S. market this year, with total car sales soaring past 30 million since entering the American market back in the year 1986. According to the two automakers, their combined sales as of February stands at 29.3 million cars over the past 39 years. Now, last year, a total of 1.7 million Hyundai and Kia cars were sold in the U.S. Company officials plan to further expand their presence in the American market by focusing on sports utility vehicles and eco-friendly vehicles. Up next, we shed light on a tour here in capital Seoul that offers you the chance to join a track that traces Korea's fight for independence. Our Kim Bo-kyung was there.
Thousands of enthusiastic trekkers began walking along the trail that starts at Baekbom Square on Namsan Mountain in Seoul. They headed along one of the Korea Memorial Roads, national pilgrimage trails covering Korea's key historic sites. The Patriots Ministry launched this meaningful trail over the weekend to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation this year.
South Korea's proud history has come this far after going through many hardships and challenges. The Patriots Ministry tries to remember this through cultural events such as trekking and camping.
There are 3 courses in Seoul related to the country's independence. One that goes around the Jongno area, taking Tapgol Park, where the Declaration of Independence was read on March 1st, 1919. A second route around the Seodaemun area, where trekkers can visit the prison history hall where martyrs were imprisoned during the Japanese colonial era. And last but not least, the route around Namsan Mountain, where people can visit the March 1st Independence Movement Monument. Not being a competition, participants slowly walked along the trail, enjoying the scent of the newly arrived spring. The focus is not on speed, but on appreciating our ancestors' unwielding wish for independence.
By walking along the trail, tracing historic sites of the independence movement, people will be able to reflect on the courage and sacrifices made for the country's freedom.
I think this is a meaningful event because it lets people think about Korean history, which is easy to forget once more.
More Korea Memorial Road routes are to be announced nationwide. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Israel has expanded its military operations in the Gaza Strip, targeting key locations and issuing evacuation orders in the southern city of Rafah. Over the weekend, the Israel Defense Forces intensified its offensive in Gaza, focusing on the southern city of Rafah. The IDF on Sunday issued immediate evacuation orders for residents in the Tel al-Sultan neighborhood, designating it a dangerous combat zone. Thousands of Palestinians fled their homes, adding to the substantial number of displaced people in the region. Also on Sunday, Israeli airstrikes targeted the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, the largest medical facility in southern Gaza, resulting in the deaths of at least 5 individuals, including a senior Hamas political bureau member. Another senior member of the Hamas political bureau and his wife have also been killed in a strike in Al-Mawasi. In Italy, Pope Francis has made his first public appearance in over 5 weeks, following a prolonged hospitalization due to bilateral pneumonia. The 88-year-old pontiff's return was met with widespread relief and joy.
Thank you all, and I see this lady with the yellow flowers. She is good.
On Sunday, Pope Francis emerged from Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he'd been receiving treatment since mid-February. Appearing in a wheelchair, he greeted some 3,000 people outside the hospital. Expressing his gratitude, the Pope said thank you to everyone. While the Pope faced significant health challenges, including acute respiratory crises and early-stage kidney failure during his hospitalization, he remained conscious and continued his papal duties. Upon discharge, Pope Francis stopped at the Basilica of St. Mary Major to offer prayers before returning to the Vatican. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called a snap federal election on Sunday for April 28th, aiming to secure a mandate to confront tariff threats from the United States. The announcement comes just 9 days after Carney took office, following the resignation of Justin Trudeau. The urgency stems from U.S. President Donald Trump's recent imposition of tariffs on Canadian exports and suggestions of annexing Canada as a 51st U.S. state. Carney condemned these actions, labeling the trade war the most significant crisis of our lifetimes and asserting we will not let that happen. The election campaign is expected to focus on defending national sovereignty and addressing economic challenges posed by the U.S. On Saturday, the Earth Hour campaign united millions globally in a symbolic action against climate change. From 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. local time, iconic landmarks dimmed their lights to raise environmental awareness. In New York City, the Empire State Building's tower lights were turned off. In Sydney, the sails of the Upper House went dark. Rio de Janeiro's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil and landmarks in Hong Kong and Tokyo also switched off their lights. Organized by the World Wildlife Fund, Earth Hour 2025 saw participation from over 180 countries and territories. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
More than ever, we need to pay more attention to not leaving any embers that could become fires. The first fire crisis warning level in southern regions is at a severe level currently. In addition, dry weather warnings are in place mainly in the east of the country. On top of that, strong winds of around 50 to 70 kilometers per hour are expected throughout the country today. The view is also stuffy due to the dust in the air. With the additional yellow dust flowing in, the concentration of ultrafine dust will stay at bad levels nationwide tomorrow. Please wear a protective mask when you go outside. Tomorrow morning will start warmly across the country with Seoul, Chuncheon, and Gyeongju at 8 degrees Celsius. Highs will jump to 20 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 25 degrees in Daegu and Jeju. More rain will begin on Wednesday in Jeju Island and the South Coast, and it will spread all over the country by Thursday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Thank you for now.